Hello everybody and welcome back to One Nerd to Rule Them All. In today's video, we're going to be uncovering the complete tales of the king under the mountain. He was the king in exile and he bravely led his company of just 13 to Erebor to bravely reclaim his home after it was taken over by the Dragon Smaug. Of course, we are talking about Thorin Oakenshield. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. Thorin II was born in 2746 of the Third Age, to the dwarf prince Thrain II, in the city of the Lonely Mountain. He was the grandson of Thror, who at the time of Thorin's birth was king under the mountain. He was also a brother to two younger siblings, his sister Dis and a brother Frerin. When Thorin was still young, aged around 24, he was forced to flee his home when the Dragon Smaug descended upon the mountain of Erabor, setting it ablaze. Smaug had also left the mannish town of Dale in ruins and killed many dwarves who were trapped inside the mountain during his siege of the kingdom. Thorin's father and grandfather, Thror and Thrain, managed to escape the dragon fire using the secret back door. Luckily, Thorin was one of the few dwarves who were not inside the mountain at the time, otherwise he surely would have been a goner. Due to the dragon's hostile takeover, those dwarves of Erebor who survived the dragon's fire were now forced into exile. Thror, Thrain and Thorin also fled, leading them south and ending up in Dunland. Disillusioned, Thorin's grandfather, Thror, wandered to the eastern gate of Moria, the old mansion of the Longbeards, now infested by orcs. He entered it and ended up murdered and desecrated by the orc Azog. This news was brought by his only companion, fellow dwarf Gnar, who broke the news to Thrain. Thus began the War of the Dwarves and Orcs. The war was fought long and hard between the two races, ultimately ending in a futile dwarven victory in the Battle of Azanul Bazaar in 2799 of the Third Age. Both Thrain and Thorin were wounded during this battle, and sadly, Frerin, Thorin's younger brother, was killed. During the battle, Thorin's shield was broken. He cut a limb from an oak tree and used it to block the blows of his foes. In memory of this, Thorin swore to bear a plain shield of oak with no device until he should be hailed king. Thus he earned the nickname Thorin Oakenshield. Despite victory in the battle, no dwarf dared to re-enter Moria out of fear of Durin's bane. After the battle, Thrain, Thorin and the other survivors of Durin's folk returned to Dunland. However, they soon began to wander Erabor before settling at last in the Blue Mountains. Despite their exile, here they prospered in their own fashion, forging iron objects and increasing their numbers, albeit due to the scarceness of dwarf women, very slowly and by wandering Longbeards who heard of his dwelling. Nonetheless, they of course all still longed to return to the Lonely Mountain. By this time, Thrain was king and was in possession of the last of the 7 rings of power. It is possible that as Sauron's power grew, so too did the ring's influence over Thrain. His burning desire for gold and the return to the Lonely Mountain became too great, and in 2841 he set out to return. Sadly, Thorin, then aged 95, was never to see his father again, as Sauron captured, imprisoned and murdered Thrain. It was around this time, after Thrain's disappearance and death, that Thorin became the king of the Durin's folk in 2850 of the Third Age. Thorin and his people were content living in the Blue Mountains and Erebor, but as the years waned, Thorin's desire to return to Erebor grew also. The fortunes of the House of Durin changed when Thorin met Gandalf by chance in 2941. They then proceeded to go to Thorin's halls. There they discussed their tales and Gandalf formulated a plan. Gandalf knew that Sauron could have potentially used Smaug with devastating effect. Therefore, both he and Thorin had a shared interest in removing Smaug. Gandalf wanted Thorin and a company of dwarves to travel to the Lonely Mountain, taking Bilbo Baggins with them. Gandalf's instinct was that the quest of Erebor would only be successful if Bilbo accompanied them. Therefore, Gandalf invited Thorin and other dwarves to Hobbiton of the Shire, instructing them to look for a smile or burrow whose door was marked with the sign of a thief. as the dwarves had gotten it in their head that Bilbo was a thief. Following this, Thorin found himself in Bag End, being kept in Bilbo the Hobbit's hospitality, although be it reluctantly. However, Thorin and the dwarves were not convinced. It was not until Gandalf revealed Thror's map and the key that Thorin was convinced that the quest would be profitable to him. Even after the unexpected party, Gandalf only persuaded Thorin to take Bilbo on the morning that they set off. So it was set. In 2941 of the Third Age, Thorin set off for the Lonely Mountain with Gandalf, Bilbo Baggins, Fili and Kili, his nephews, Balin and Dwalin, Thorin's third cousins, Dori, Nori, Ori, Oin, Gloin, Biffa, Boffa and Bomba. A short time into their journey, the adventurers found a troll cave. Here they found a hoard of treasures, which included blades made in the ancient city of Gondolin. Bilbo found a knife that he named Sting. Gandalf acquired Glamdring, and meanwhile Thorin found Orcrist. Whilst Thorin and the company were in Rivendell, Elrond read the inscriptions on the blades and informed them of their swords' histories. He was also able to read the moon letter on Thror's map. It read, "Stand by the grey stone when the thrush knocks, and the setting sun with the last light of Durin's day will shine upon the keyhole." After leaving Rivendell, Thorin and his company encountered spiders and were later imprisoned by the Elven king Thranduil. They made their escape from the kingdom in barrels and travelled down to Lake Town. Upon reaching Esgaroth, the other name for Lake Town, the closest settlement to the Lonely Mountain, Thorin was greeted warmly, and the men of Lake Town hailed the return of the king under the mountain. They soon reached the Lonely Mountain itself, and with the last light of Durin's day, they found the secret side door, using the key to open it. Thorin then sent Bilbo in to carry out his duty of their esteemed burglar, to regain their treasure, and more specifically, the Arkenstone. Bilbo proceeded to converse with the newly awakened Smaug. This enraged Smaug, who sought out to destroy the burglar. Realising that the men of Lake Town must have helped the Hobbit, he sought to take out his vengeance on the Lakemen by burning Esgaroth to the ground, just like he had done to Dale. Whilst on his warpath, Smaug the dragon was slain by Bard, who pierced an unarmoured spot on the dragon's underside using a black arrow. The dwarves had succeeded in their mission. Erebor was once again theirs. Upon hearing the news of the death of Smaug, Thorin fortified the main entrance to the mountain. Soon, hosts of wood elves and lake men approached the mountain, led by the Elven king and Bard respectively. Thorin refused to consider Bard's claim to a share in the treasure until the elven host had withdrawn. Refusing to send away the elves, Bard pronounced the mountain under siege until Thorin would give them their part in the treasure. It was during this time that Thorin sent word using a talking raven to his cousin, Dain Ironfoot, who lived in the Iron Hills. He brought with him more than 500 dwarves from the Iron Hills to end the siege in favour of the dwarves and in favour of his cousin and king, Thorin. Bilbo sought to bring an end to the dispute. To this end, he secretly gave the Arkenstone to Bard and to the Elven king to use in making a deal with Thorin. When Thorin heard about Bilbo's actions, he was furious and cast him out of the company. However, all disputes were cast aside when the army of Bolg, Azog's son, suddenly attacked. Thus, the three armies of elves, men and dwarves united against the two armies of goblins and wargs. The Battle of the Five Armies had begun. As the battle drew on, Thorin leapt from the front gate and rallied all elves, men and dwarves to him. The armies of the free people of Middle-earth emerged triumphant. Nonetheless, Fili and Kili were killed, and Thorin was gravely wounded. On his deathbed, Thorin apologised to Bilbo for his angry words and deeds. He commended his good character, as well as his courage and friendship, saying that, if more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. With that, Thorin died. He was laid to rest deep in the Lonely Mountain. Bard of Dale placed the Arkenstone upon Thorin's chest, while the Elven king laid Orcrist upon Thorin's tomb. Thorin's appearance differs depending on what adaptation of The Hobbit the audience watches. Thorin is described by Tolkien as having had a white beard and wore a sky blue hood with a long silver tassel. Around his neck he wore a gold chain, upon which he attached his grandfather's key. He wore a belt of gold and jewels, and his stockings were yellow. He was also said to be quite tall for a dwarf, though his height was otherwise negligible compared to the other races. This can be seen most accurately in the 1977 Rankin Bass Productions version of The Hobbit. In the 2014 version, Thorin is seen as being much younger with greyish dark hair, still tall, but his clothes are far less colourful and better suited for one who is on a quest to reclaim his homeland without drawing too much attention to himself. He was still seen as rather tall for a dwarf, as were his nephews Fili and Kili. Despite this, in both adaptations, his character is described the same, described as an extraordinarily proud and stubborn dwarf. This is the story of Thorin Oakenshield, the king under the mountain. Even though he was only king for a short while, he was certainly a dwarf worthy of the title of king, and he is by far one of my favourite characters that Tolkien ever created. Anyway, that'll be it from me today. If you enjoyed this, then please leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any future content. Anyway, that'll be it from me. I hope you have a wonderful day and I will see you next time. Bye for now.